Okay, folks, it's time for some honesty. There are many ways to fight a war. What commonly comes to mind when speaking about war is physical violence and destruction. But in reality, war and always has been fought on multiple fronts. One form of warfare is informational warfare. And in terms of American descendants of slaves, it has been one of the most effective forms of control. From blaxploitation films to gangster rap, all forms of media since the 1960s and the black empowerment era has been used to instill destructive mindsets among our people. Now, during that time, the FBI implemented a program called COINTELPRO. Now, this program that was ended in 1971, or so they told us, right? The destructive values in gangster rap, blaxploitation films, and reality shows seem a bit too coincidental, in my opinion. Now, I have it labeled COINTELPRO 2.0 because it is a white supremacy subversive tactic moving into the age of the internet. Think about that. How are they implementing COINTELPRO in the age of social media? All the social media trolls you got on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, you don't think that the FBI would be paying these people thousands to sit on the internet and make divisive comments? Something to think about. You don't think these social media sites would allow comments on another reputable ADOS figure's site or on their YouTube page? You don't think they would do something like that? Now, of course, there's going to be people who are going to say, nah, you need to show me the direct evidence that that's actually true in order for that to be real. But this is something for you to think about, though. Like I always tell you, like, you should always go to the worst case scenario. Always go to the worst case scenario on what people would be willing to do to stay in power. Hey, and in terms of that, white supremacy has not disappointed. Let's just be honest. This is the first possibility we should consider. Sadly, we're usually right. Speaking of bad intentions, a lot of people have been doing videos on the death of Nipsey Hussle. He's a rapper from LA. And in the picture, you can see Congresswoman Karen Bass of the 37th District of California. And in this tweet that I have posted here, she states, I will be heading to the House floor next week to formally enter Nipsey Hussle's contributions to South Los Angeles into the congressional record, where it will be a part of United States history forever. Now, this comment got a lot of applause and gratitude for Karen Bass on Twitter, but my question is where was she and LA politicians when Nipsey was alive and working in the community? His death gave an opportunity for a lot of these Democratic politicians, and let's be honest, a lot of celebrities like Karen Bass, to gain favor among African Americans or ADOS without really doing anything or really promising anything tangible to us. So we're just giving them kudos. Oh, he said something nice about Nipsey Hussle, so we're going to give you kudos. And you haven't even actually done anything. I'm just telling you what I see. And they are always looking for opportunities like that, by the way. Remember my last video, as I like to keep everything in perspective, so I always take something that I said in my last video and put it into my next video to have a comprehensive view so that we keep this all in context. That these black members, these black Congress members, are not there to do anything for us. Remember, they were up there in their own mission statement. They're talking about doing things for immigration. How is that going to help African Americans? How is that going to help American descendants of slaves? If they have a primary push for immigration, shouldn't the main concern be our neighborhoods, the lack of black businesses? Shouldn't that be their primary concern? These are questions I'm asking so that you guys can ask these questions and really think about what the good answer should be. What should the answer be? Karen Bass' statement is an example of how the media is weaponized against us to focus on something other than the fact that Congresswoman Karen Bass hasn't accomplished much in the benefit of American descendants of slaves, of us black people. She hasn't really done much for us, but yet we're the ones that vote her in. And she's been in since 2011. She's been in since 2011. Nobody is really doing things that are productive for American descendants of slaves. That's just outright, man. That is measured in economic wealth and development. But just like Karen Bass, we got people willing to tell us intangible things to boost their popularity, or selling us garbage in today's rap songs. Just look at the lyrics on this song that I have posted up here. Just look at the lyrics from a rapper named Blueface. You know why other groups usually tend to censor out violent messaging, why they tend to censor out and bleep out curse words and tend not to talk about violence too much? The primary reason why is because they don't want it to become habit forming. Cursing in most cases is taken as you having a strong emotional position on something. And it's not always good to express yourself that way because it could be seen as hostile. Could be taken offensively. That's just a fact. And us saying, well, you shouldn't, man, you just being soft. It's just a word. You know, it's not just a word. It's not just a word. But ADOS children are affected by this type of stuff because they're around it by proxy. So when you see all these guys driving down in their cars with their radios on loud and they got all their rap music on, like, the kids are going to hear the lyrics. They're going to be like, what's that song? They're going to get on the internet. This is the age of the internet now, so you can just get on the internet and see anything now. But the fact is that we don't want this. We don't want to push it in their face and let them know that this is actually normal. This is what we should expect from them. You can't stop kids from buying. You can stop your kids from buying it, but you can't stop them from hearing it once they go to school. Like once they go to their friend's house, their friend said their parents listen to it all the time, blasting it through the house. There ain't nothing wrong with it. F this, F that, you know. And then and that's how it spreads around the culture. And then you wonder why all the kids are so disrespectful nowadays. That's part of the reason why. Speaking of making chaos and dysfunction sound cool, some of these black reality shows, we have indoctrinating our people into how relationships should be, or what are making these fantasies of these really crazy black relationships, these celebrity black relationships. The long gone are the ideas of relationships being primarily upfront about how much you care about each other. It is now primarily about, and I'm just talking about up front, how good you look, how good your clothes look, how expensive your clothes are, who your friends are, how good looking your friends are. That's some of the primary stuff that dictates relationships now. And you'll see it in the reality show that I'm like in some of these black reality shows now. That's the type of stuff you see. And we see the arguing and jealousy and the relationships being displayed on shows like Love and Hip Hop Atlanta, Love and Hip Hop wherever, Housewives of wherever, Basketball Wives or whatever. We see this type of stuff. Some of our people will think that this is the way relationships should function. And to be honest, that's the way people really, in real life, think that relationships should function. I mean, try and look at Love and Hip Hop, and then compare that to black people's expectations for their mates. Oh, he don't look good enough, man. He ain't light skinned, man. He ain't a real one. Just look at all the dudes on these reality shows and what they look like, what they dress like. And keep in mind throughout this who's funding all of these media efforts. Who's publishing the music? Who's providing funding to put these TV shows on television? And why is all of these forms of media that's being pushed, these forms of entertainment that's being pushed on television, pushed through CD sales, or why is it so destructive? It seems conveniently destructive, if you ask me. So as I begin to close out this address, I want to point out that the media itself is just a means to an end. The effects of the media manifest itself in the real world in the form of mob mentality. To explain this better, I put up this Japanese proverb up on the screen. It reads, "The nail that sticks out will be hammered down." Now, we have all seen this to be true, as this essentially means if you try to stray away from the cultural norms, either you will be pressured to toe the line through ridicule, peer pressure, or you're going to be ostracized, or you're going to be excluded. Now, this in and of itself isn't a bad thing, because it does kind of, some cultural norms are important. Some cultural norms are important, like cultural norms not to hit women, right? Some cultural norms not to hit children. We got other cultural norms not to stalk people. You know, and those are some cultural norms that are important that we have some kind of regulation on, some social regulation on. There's actual law, and then there's social regulation that's not written into law, but people kind of enforce themselves. And that's kind of what media tries to instill, is a social law. You know, because We as humans are social creatures. So when we feel like a critical mass of people are pushing a social norm, individuals will usually get on board by either openly supporting it or not supporting it openly, but having no choice but to reluctantly accept it. That's a fact. They'll say, I don't like this, but whatever. People can do whatever they want to do. That's essentially what that means. I don't like it, but they can do what they do. It don't affect me none. So that's them reluctantly accepting it. As I've stated, the media's power is to display images to indoctrinate enough people on a social norm so that when you go outside and interact with other people, the viewpoints supported by the media shows up in everyday conversation in their viewpoints. And it shows up in their viewpoints. Now, it's one thing to see these viewpoints on TV and maybe you think nothing of it, but when you go out to work, to school, to social events, to the club, to your friend's house, and you hear these talking points being talked about in the real world, you got people bringing this up in the real world, you're going to think, man, this must be pretty important. It's going to increase the importance of what you saw on TV. That's how it comes into the real world and becomes more of a social norm. That's how it does that. I don't agree or care about this, but seems like everybody else is talking about it. That's what you're going to think about it. Everybody else is talking about it. It seems important. Remember, not everyone or the majority of people around you has heard about this or that. I'm just paraphrasing. But it's about creating the illusion that everyone thinks that it's important, that it's bigger than what it actually is. It's giving that illusion that it's bigger than it actually is because you're going out and you're seeing a whole bunch of other people talking about it. You see a bunch of people tweeting about it online, and then you tend to give it a social norm type power, this idea, this viewpoint, this idea, whether you're going to openly support it or you're going to reluctantly accept it. Right? Which will bring even more people to talk about it. So it's a chain reaction, When one person talks about it and then you see a whole bunch of other people talking about it, then you're just going to join in. It's just like you need to have money to make money. So once you put money in, like into a stock, and then you make money off of that, you pull that money out, and then you put it into another stock, it makes money, and then you pull that money out. That's how it works. It's like a chain reaction. You need money to make money. You need people talking about it in order to get more people to talk about it. And then once you hit that critical mass, then it's important. Then it just takes on, then it blows up out of control and it takes on a life of its own. That's what the media is trying to achieve anytime they want to try and push a viewpoint in our community. They want enough people. Anytime you see Joy Reid or Angela Rye on any of their media platforms pushing an idea, they want to get enough people to believe that idea that they start pushing that idea to other people, and then it creates this chain reaction. And now it's real. Some things aren't real until we make them real, and some ideas are actually like that. So some ideas, like some ideas like I don't know, dating outside your race is better than dating within your race. Some ideas, an idea like that isn't technically better, but if the media pushes that idea and then enough people catch on to it and actually replicate that message, it's not, remember, it's not actually better, but if people replicate that message, then people will think that is better because so many people are talking about it. So either they're going to uh, support it as being better, or they're going to reluctantly accept that it's better because a whole bunch of people are talking about it. And it's similar to how people say that black people produce more than 50% of the crime, even though a lot of the statistics are blown out of proportion, and a lot of the arrests for the white population isn't really reported on or isn't even really brought up. It's all about the information that you want to push. This is how the media works, folks. This is how the media works. That's what all those propagandists, the CNN, the MSNBC, the Fox News, the PBS, the CBS, they're all propagandists. If you hadn't noticed, they're not journalists. They're not news. They're all trying to frame a narrative. That's basically what propaganda is. You're just trying to take something. You don't even have to lie. They're not lying. They're just not telling you all the information. They're taking out bits of information out of stories, right? And they're only pushing the information that promotes their agenda, that promotes their narrative, right? And what they're trying to do with that narrative is what I just told you. They're trying to get a critical mass of people to believe that narrative. And then once they get that critical mass of people to believe that narrative, either the people are going to support it openly or they're not going to support it, but they'll have no choice but to accept it because it will become a social norm. So we got to be aware of that. And we should also think about how we can use this to our advantage to inform our own people. Just think about that.